Welcome to Behind the Research, where we go behind the latest research from the Journal of Financial Planning. I'm Ben Lewis, and today I'm joined by Klaus Gottlieb, an estate planning attorney at Wealth Care Lawyer in California with a special interest in charitable giving and split interest planning. He designs and drafts charitable remainder trusts across California and founded calcrut.com, a consulting practice serving CFP professionals and other advisors. Klaus authored the latest research in the August issue of the Journal of Financial Planning titled, When Does a Charitable Remainder Unitrust Outperform? A Monte Carlo multi-benchmark suitability framework. Charitable remainder unitrusts have long been a go-to planning tool for charitably inclined clients with appreciated assets, but how often do they win? Klaus's research runs 10,000 simulated scenarios to stress test the CRUT against the real alternatives clients face, and the answer depends heavily on which alternative you're comparing it to. Asset basis, state taxes, and how long the client lives matter far more than the factors planners typically obsess over. The upshot? The CRUT can absolutely earn its place in a plan, but only if you're asking the right comparison question from the start. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore what inspired this research and how you can apply it to your work with your clients. Thanks for joining me, Klaus, and welcome to Behind the Research.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, so why the research? I mean, I think the biggest problem is underuse. CRUTs are really underused. And the question is, why is that so? And I think it's mostly because of unfamiliarity and some misconceptions people have. So just to remind everybody what CRUTs are. So you basically have a diversified asset and you want to save on capital gains taxes, and you don't have to pay these capital gains taxes when you sell it to the trustee of the CRUT, and you will receive an income stream for life or a period of years, and in an initial charitable income tax deduction up front, and then the remainder goes to charity at termination. And so sounds all very difficult, and for some people it is, but so how often do advisors really get involved in these charitable remainder trusts? And I did a back of the envelope calculation, and I don't want to bore you with the inputs or the assumptions, but essentially the average advisor, be it a CPA, an attorney, or a financial planner, can expect to see one CRUT every 100 years. So the question naturally is, so if so few are done, why is this important? And maybe the tool is not all that great. And and I think what really happens here, it's the unfamiliarity concept. So we have this nice hot tub at home, and it has all these dials, lights, and jets, and what have you. And I'm afraid to get into it myself because I don't know how to use it. So I asked my wife to come with me, and when we do it together, it's wonderful. So that's a little bit how a CRUT could be for some of us. Not everybody's going to do one, but you should be all aware of what the factors are which make it a good tool. And then maybe in a large firm, you have somebody who gets interested in it and becomes expert. In a smaller firm, if you don't have that, you may have an outside advisor, and so forth. But that's basically why I think this research was necessary to kind of address some misconceptions. And I just want to nominate two of them. So a lot of people think, well, a lot of people think that the gift to charity swallows the whole tax benefit. So they think, if you're not charitably inclined, it's not a zero-sum game, it's a minus-sum game, if you just talk about dollar sums. And the other thing is, nobody asks what the client would otherwise do with the assets, because knowing whether you're better off really depends on what you're comparing it with, right? Better off than what? And that's often not really pulled out. And so what we did here is, instead of kind of waxing, waning, having an expert opinion, it's easier to convince people by showing them numbers and simulations and showing them the methodology, the assumptions which are being made, and then the outputs are more convincing than just statements. So that was basically, as you said, the reason we did this, and we did the 10,000 market simulations across different assumptions. with different inputs. We have a archetypical couple in there. He is 64, she's 62. How would they do under different assumptions? And that's all being modeled. So that's basically, if in a nutshell, CRTs are not done often enough. And most of the primary reason is unfamiliarity. And perhaps we can work on that.
Excellent. So I do like to talk about the practical application of research. I mean, that's one of the keys. Is great. You have this terrific research, but what does it mean in practice? So what do you most hope FPA members, as they're reading your research, are going to take away and actually apply to their practices and their work with clients?
Well, if I collapse this paper into one idea, is the tax law requires that you establish how long this CRT, the Charitable Remainder Unitrust, will run. And it's easy when it's a term of years, right? You just plug in the number, then you know. But if it's a life of a person or the life of two people together, then it becomes more complicated. So you have to use a life table.
Mhm.
And the life table, which is being used for this, for the IRS initial calculation of the remainder interest, which is also your tax deduction, that life table is from 2010, and it is the average population in the United States. And interestingly, they collapse female and male for tax equity reasons. So, but the truth of the matter is that our typical client who comes to us and is interested in tax planning and potentially establishing a CRT, they tend to be healthier and they live longer. And that's a very important component of a success of a CRT. Because if you think about it, if the CRT doesn't stop at 23 years, but there's 7 additional years at 30 years, you have all this extra time to compound the corpus in the CRT, and that often moves the needle towards a higher win probability. Win probability is, in my manner of speaking, how likely it is that you actually come out ahead of any other alternative in percentage terms. And then that's why it's important to know what alternative you're choosing. But anyway, I can expound a little bit more about this if you like. But
yeah.
the other,
Yeah, please do.
So thank you. The other important thing is, so we just said, I mean, you have to look at the low basis. Low basis is one of the main ingredients of a successful CRT in dollar terms, right? If you don't care what happens to your money, if you just want it to go to charity in some form or fashion, we don't have that discussion. But we have that discussion, or we should have this discussion, in a client who never considered a CRT because it was never presented to them. So charitable intent is in a way dormant, and it can be brought out if you make the financial case. So that's another important message here. We can screen more folks for CRTs if we put away this notion that they have to walk in waving a flag, I'm charitably inclined, I'm on a non-profit board. We have to instead ask, do you have capital gains taxes to pay? Okay, let's look at different alternatives. Here's the CRT. This is what the CRT could do. In your specific situation, this is what could happen. And once that's being said, people may switch and say, well, it's kind of always thought about my alma mater giving her something. And so that's how charitable interest kind of grows, or is awoken, if you will. And so these are the two main things: screen for longevity advantage, low asset basis is obviously important, and then don't start with, don't rule people out unless they are clearly charitably inclined. That may come later.
That's great. Well, obviously, there's a lot for people to think about as they read the research and to consider for their own practice and to work with their clients. So, listen, Klaus, thank you so much for taking the time today and for helping all of our members go behind the research. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. And everybody, you can dig into this exciting new research in the August issue of the Journal of Financial Planning, which is now available to all FPA members. You can simply scan the QR code on the screen or visit fpajournal.org. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Research.